Let's get it Star Wars. Let's get it Star Wars in here. Let's get it Star Wars. Let's get it Star Wars in here.
A small rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio,
your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Well, I got a text message from one of my favorite people today. And I confess it went by, most of the day flew by, and I didn't even think about it, but this is the text. Is today your personal holiday? ? This day in 1977, Star Wars was released in theaters. And it was from a really sweet person that I used to work with. She's a wonderful lady, and it was always so curious and supportive and happy to hear about the podcast adventures that I was having. And so it's May the 25th as we record this show, and she thought of me because she had heard somewhere that, yes, today is the day that Star Wars came out. And for some people, May 25th is the real Star Wars Day. So I wrote back to her. I said, some consider that it is the real Star Wars Day and that May the 4th is the Hallmark holiday equivalent. And she says, yeah, but May the 25th be with you doesn't have the same ring to it. So judge for yourself. I know one person that feels that May 25th is the real Star Wars Day, and that's my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Yes, happy Star Wars Day. And I do consider May the 25th to be the legitimate Star Wars Day. May the 4th is fun. May the 4th be with you, pun. But it really is the hallmark holiday of Star Wars. True Star Wars Day is celebrated on May 25th because, of course, it's the birthday of the release of the original film. And as much as I love to give you guys reports from the original Star Wars generation, as I was there with feet on the ground, boots on the ground in 1977, I love talking about the first time I saw Star Wars and what its impact was on pop culture and society in general. Unfortunately, on May the 25th, 1977, I couldn't tell you where I was. If I was in a movie theater, I wasn't seeing Star Wars. I was late to the party. Probably didn't see Star Wars until August or early September 1977. So while the date does mean a lot to me, I wasn't really on board on May 25th, 1977.
Well,
it was a slow burn that summer for Star Wars. And as more kids got word of it, it was only released in a handful of theaters on May 25th. A handful.
And where you were more when you first saw Star Wars than you do where were you on May 25th. It's not like,
I was probably ignorant of Star Wars on May 25th, 77.
You didn't get that Wonder Bread trading card at that point, huh?
No, because that's what made me start demanding to go see it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it felt like something that was more for bigger kids than me as an 8-year-old.
Right.
Maybe it just felt like, maybe I was just too conditioned by all the crappy Disney live action stuff that was coming out in the mid-70s. Herbie the Love Bug, Escape from Witch Mountain, which was fine in its time.
Yeah. Some of those Don Knotts Disney movies. And
Don Knotts.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Hot Lead and 10 Foot or whatever I forget the Hot Lead. But I went to go see all of them, man. I saw all of them. Usually they were double features, too. Kill in an Afternoon. As a kid in the 70s, we didn't have the internet. Nothing to do. So go hang out at the movie theaters.
Well, I got a little bit of
I was late getting to Star Wars. When I finally did get to it, obviously, more than an addiction, it was, a lifestyle was established.
A lifestyle. It is a lifestyle. I do have a little bit of May 25th trivia. You very well may know, but it's not the only. It's not only the original release date for Episode 4: A New Hope. There was another Star Wars movie that was also released on May 25th. Do you recall?
Yeah, well, I think Solo, a Star Wars story, was.
That one's not on my list. That one's not on my roster. There's another one.
The only reason I'm saying that is because I got one of those annoying Facebook memory alerts today. And it was this message wasn't annoying at all. It was a group photo of us in front of the movie theater in Ohio for Solo in Ohio. It was a group shot of everyone who was there with us. We had a nice crowd, good turnout. It was a lot of fun. And I think that was May 25th.
You're absolutely right, Nate. So there are three, including A New Hope, 3 Star Wars films that were released on May the 25th.
Was Revenge of the Sith one of them?
No, Revenge of the Sith was released on May 19th, 2005.
May 19th. So was The Phantom Menace.
That is correct.
Return of the Jedi?
Yes, Return of the Jedi, released May 25th, 1983.
Also, I was not at the theater on that date either. I remember there was something that held me up from going to see Return of the Jedi on opening day. Mm-hmm. And Billy Mack was there. Billy Mack was there at opening day with his little buddy Matt Dwyer, who spoiled Jabba being killed by Leia. He told me that. His Leia killed Jabba. I'm like, you son of a... That was a big spoiler.
Yeah.
To me,
it was.
That was a big spoiler. And I don't even think I'd ever seen Jabba the Hutt in my life before that.
No.
Actually going to the movie. I didn't even know who Jabba was.
No, I did. When was the first
time?
time?
Who Jabba was.
Well, he's referenced, obviously, in the film.
Yeah.
And I believe the comic adaptation?
Comic. Yeah.
Also. Mm-hmm. But that footage, that original footage from the original Star Wars with the giant acorn, I like to call him. He looked like he was dressed like an acorn. The Jabba, the human actor that played Jabba the Hutt. Prior.
He's kind of like Friar Tuck. Yeah,
well, yeah, Friar Tuck or an acorn.
Mm-hmm.
When did that footage first see the light of day? That was long after the original trilogy was.
After. Yeah, you know what? That only trickled out here and there, and it showed up when the special edition was being released because they had reinstated that Jabba scene and finished the stop motion photography. It was by then it was CGI, but George had shot those scenes with a guy on the set in wardrobe, and Jason just put a picture up of that guy, and he had intended on replacing the dude with a stop motion creature. And just they ran out of money and time and everything else. So the scene itself was scrapped. And George brought it back for the special edition. So all of the behind the scenes footage from the special edition that was released at the time to promote the film featured some before and afters and showed the scene with the original actor and then showed the scene with the new Jabba the Hutt placed in.
So that was the first time we saw it, was that special edition making of. Oh my gosh.
Yes. You know what? There may have been quickie shots of it seen in various making ofs from the past. Just quick though. We didn't really start seeing it more fully until the special edition. And I remember one of the entertainment shows like Extra or Entertainment Tonight, they had some exclusive footage of it, and they showed it during their closing credits of the show. And that was some of that stuff was the first time I ever saw that.
Now, Boba Fett was added later, right, to incorporate.
Oh, yeah.
Boba Fett wasn't initially because the Boba Fett, the mail away figure, happened in advance of Empire coming out. You had the prototype armor showing up in parades and things like that. I've always been a little confused about that and whether or not Boba Fett was originally intended or was supposed to be in the, as one of Jabba's bounty hunters. But he was not. That was added later.
He had a few Greedos on the set with him.
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I think one other human bodyguard. But Boba was added for the special edition because George wanted to have Boba featured throughout the whole trilogy. But Boba wasn't really conceived until after A New Hope had been filmed and released and everything. So that's where he came from.
And I think
was
that
between period.
Don Beese was Boba Fett in those special edition pickups, wasn't he?
I think so.
I think so.
I know he was for the Return of the Jedi stuff in Jabba's palace. There's that one shot where Boba flirts with the dancing girls.
Yeah, kind of gives her a little tap on the chin.
Yeah. And that's fresh. That's fresh footage.
Yeah,
shot in the 90s for the special edition. I haven't really thought about the making of the special edition in a while, and that was a really fun period because it really said, "Hey, Star Wars is back now."
Yes,
and it was in the theaters, and everyone was getting reacquainted with the film. I had a little nephew who was totally gobsmacked by the revelation of Star Wars, and it was a really fun time.
Yeah,
very fun. Yeah.
I my memory of the, especially because I wasn't really plugged into the internet until I went to college. So for me, that was like that was more like 97, so we're around the same time, but it was all we really did is we had AOL chat rooms. There really weren't websites as we know them today. So I got my news from, like you were saying, Entertainment Tonight, things like that. And my girlfriend at the time, we went to see a movie called Wild America, which is it was a Jonathan Taylor Thomas was in it. It was about Marty Stouffer, the documentary or nature documentarian. And we walked into the movie theater, and there was a big cardboard standee, took up practically the whole lobby, and it was for Star Wars: The Special Edition. I did not know that this was coming out. This was the first time I was aware of it, and I was so overcome by this thing. It was this huge. I didn't know I wanted to bow to it, and it's so hard, I think, for people now that have grown up fans in the last 25, 30 years. Where Star Wars, there's always something Star Wars on the horizon. I mean, Star Wars was dead. I mean, playing with my Star Wars action figures to the bitter end into the late 80s as a kid, praying at night, literally praying at night that I would live to see another Star Wars movie, and then to walk in and see that. And not only did I see that standee, that big cardboard display, but I sat into the seat and they played that trailer,
For 25 years, or for 20 years, the only way to see Star Wars was on the small screen,
and it showed the kid, or, showed the little TV screen, and now, and you see it the way it was meant to be seen, all that. What a great trailer.
That was
Loved
a great
it.
trailer. They should have had you voicing it. That sounded really good.
Well, I
You brought me
remember
right
that.
into it. You sucked me right in. But yeah, it was an X-Wing on a small TV, and then the X-Wing would fly out of the TV and fill up the full film screen. And yeah.
The wait is over.
It was great. That was fantastic. The whole
was-
special edition period.
It was an awesome time. Awesome time.
Mm-hmm. And that was the first time we saw Star Wars films in the theater during the winter time. Obviously, Christmas had become now sort of a traditional time to release Star Wars films, but back in the day, it was always May, end of May, Memorial Day weekend.
Right.
Star
Sure.
Wars. And that's why we're always celebrating all these different anniversaries this time of year. And those special editions were released at what was considered to be the lamest time of the year to release a film.
Specifically chosen.
Yeah.
George was so unsure of. He didn't want any competition because he was so concerned about how it would perform. So they were
was a gamble.
staggered January, February, March of that year.
Right. And each time the film went to number one, all
Yes.
three films of the trilogy, and that
Yep.
blew everyone else away. It was like a fight between Howard Stern's Private Parts and the Star Wars re-releases. And
they tripped over each other a little bit. There were some markets
Yeah.
where all three of them were still playing at the same time.
yes. Ooh, gosh, to think of the way that I dove into that. Oh my God, I was blowing off work. I was doing all kind of.
Did you do a
playing
threefer
hooky.
in one day?
I don't ever recall doing that ever. But I have watched Empire and Jedi back to back in theaters. But I don't ever recall doing, and I've watched A New Hope like 3 times in a row in a theater. And I've definitely watched Empire 2 times in a row in a theater, but that was back in their original runs, you see. And with the special editions, no. I mean,
There was
I had a girlfriend.
Yeah, no, I get it. There was a brief time after the special editions came out in the late '90s where nonprofits could still license the films for fundraisers and do fundraising events, license them for distribution or actually not distribution, but to play. And there was so E.J. Thomas Hall, which is in Akron, Ohio. They did a fundraiser and did all 3 films back to back to back with like 15-minute intermissions in between each one. And I did do that. So I have sat through all 3 of the original trilogy films back to back to back. And
I got to do that. I have to do that in a theater.
In a theater, this was in a proscenium, theatrical theater. That's redundant, but you know what I'm trying to say. Not a movie theater. It was an actual live theater. So it was comfy seats and. But I was really glad that I did that. That's a great memory to sit there and watch all 3, and it's, it does take on a sort of a different flavor when you're hitting all 3 back to back to back. And I know that we get emails all the time from listeners that have their own marathons. They do it all the time. But that was my first experience of ever doing it. And I do remember catching a few of the celebration presentations. I never sat and did all of them. In fact, they would usually, when they would play the Star Wars films at celebrations, they would clear the room to try to give more people a chance. You were in the later conventions, I think maybe after like Celebration 4 or 5, you couldn't just squat and sit and watch all of them throughout the night. You kind of had to pick which one you wanted to go see. I remember seeing Episode 2. I might have been sitting with you, Jim.
No, I've never sat and watched a film at the Star Wars celebrations.
Oh, you never did that?
No, I mean, because there's just so much unique Star Wars activity going on at those events, I found myself avoiding the films because I can watch those anytime.
Anytime, right.
Yeah, and I just find the setup in the convention center is not really the best for watching a film to begin with.
It's not like when you're home, you can just go downstairs and go into the droid builder's room, right? That's an experience you can only get it. So, like, what am I going to do? Sit and watch this DVD play or this Blu-ray playing on this projector that I could do at home, or am I going to go? Yeah, right. No, I get you.
So, Star Wars 44 years old this week. So that means a podcast host that I know is also 44 years old this year.
That's correct.
And that'll be coming up later. Back in 1977, Star Wars opened on 43 screens.
That is not a lot.
43 screens, yeah. And then it eventually grew to over 2,300 screens. But it was a slow burn. That summer, it caught on like wildfire, and it was at a production budget of $11 million. It brought in opening weekend $1.5 million, just a little more than that.
Wow,
$1,554,475, and it was a big hit for the time. That's big numbers for 1977. Don't kid yourself. But, we look at a number like that and go, oh, my God, that's like.
Think about this, though. One episode of The Mandalorian was $12.5 million.
Yeah, right. More expensive than the entire
and of course, I know
budget for Star Wars.
Right. I mean, of course, there's inflation and all that stuff, but I'll bet if you adjusted for it, it probably still does dwarf the original budget of that film.
So a big domestic box office, but of course, it was released in 77, then again in 78 on July 21st. It was re-released August 15th, 1979, April 10th, 1981, August 13th, 1982, and of course the special edition released January 31st, 1997. And of course, like we said, that was a risk for Lucas because he had the sequels coming in 2 years. Yeah. If nobody gave a crap about these expensive special edition re-releases of Star Wars, how much do you think George Lucas would have dumped into the Phantom Menace? I mean, would he have been intimidated by that? What if it was a big flop? He'd probably say something like, "Yeah, I knew it was going to be a flop all along." I just, he would do something like that. But thank God it was a huge success.
Do you remember going to see any of those early 80s re-releases?
Every single one of them.
You did. So you would go back to
the
okay, all right.
You had to, Jason, because there was no home video.
Right.
It wasn't even being rerun on television.
So it's not like when the new season of your favorite show is coming, you binge watch the last season so you can kind of refresh your memory. This was the only way you could do that. So Empire's coming out. They put Star Wars back in cinemas so you can go see that, catch up, and then go see the new one.
Well, yes, in a way. I mean, we were all just so programmed to go to Star Wars every summer. It was almost just, part of life in the 70s. Every summer you go see Star Wars.
I see. Okay, so it wasn't just in the build-up hype of the sequel. It was
it was really taking advantage in the wake of what a huge smash success Star Wars was, because every movie studio was trying to replicate that. They greenlit every science fiction film they had in development at that time.
They sent James Bond into outer space.
Right.
I mean, that's how desperate they were to ride those coattails.
Right. All the studios. Disney greenlit The Black Hole, which had been languishing in development forever. Dino De Laurentiis fired up the Flash Gordon machine. Star Trek came back.
Yes.
Everything. And then there were just 1,000 cheap knockoffs that would hit the theater every weekend. And I went to go see some of those too. Buck Rogers, Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
Those had theatrical releases at the time. Everyone was trying to tap into the Star Wars box office. Meanwhile, 20th Century Fox is just like, screw y'all, we're just going to re-release Star Wars. Suck on that.
Because our old movie is going to beat your knockoff new movie. Yeah.
Every time. And you would then look at the special effects of those other films and compare them to Star Wars. And you'd be like, yeah, there's really one total champion here, and that is the wars. And it was obvious, even to kids, we understood the difference in quality. We understood that Star Wars had a quality to it that was unparalleled at the time. They were the undisputed champion of any sort of space opera film that any studio could release. None of them could match Star Wars, and that was for a long, long time. To me, it wasn't until CGI really started to level the playing field. In the day of practical effects, Star Wars was untouched. And you could look back in retrospect and confirm it for yourself, because I firmly believe that. I'd like to hear what Paul Bateman would say about something like that, and he'd probably agree. I hope he would agree. I think my statement is based in legitimacy, because I saw all those movies in the time, and it was just like, okay, that was good, but where's Star Wars?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I mean, that's sort of always been, was sort of always in the back of my mind as I was using things like Star Trek: The Next Generation in the 90s to try and, scratch that itch. And I would be, sitting there and enjoying it and talk to my friends who were Star Trek fans and go, yeah, but what's better than this?
Well, yeah.
I would throw that bomb, and some of them agreed, and some of them were like, "No way, man! No way!"
It was almost out of desperation. I would find myself seeking out other sci-fi franchises.
Were you sort of embarrassed?
In the hope that there would be just like a modicum of comparison to Star Wars, just a little tiny bit. And I got to admit, I think I got some of that from things like the original Battlestar and the Buck Rogers shows. I watched that stuff religiously because it was speaking the same language, maybe not as fluently or as articulate as Star Wars, but it was still scratching an itch. Even in the 80s when there was no Star Wars. I think a lot of fans of that era who were looking for something to fill the void found Star Trek: The Next Generation. And that's what generated a lot of that success. Right. Was the fact that it wasn't because of Star Wars, it was because there was no Star Wars at the time. And we were just looking for something. And then Lucas made it clear that he was going to be bringing the franchise back probably around 94 to those in the know. And then he made it official in 96 with a big announcement about the special editions and the prequels. And so then
yes, it was a package deal. We knew that was coming.
I remember, working in radio, and I'd be driving home, listening to the station I work for, hearing a news report from a news reporter I know personally saying, "Oh, and look at this. Looks like Star Wars is back. They're bringing this one back. It's going to be that." I'm like, back? I don't know. I've been subscribed to Star Wars Insider magazine since 1993 and playing the Nintendo game and reading the novels. And, it hasn't gone anywhere. But it gave me a real taste for, like, how the public was totally in the dark when it came to Star Wars and how interesting it was to see then with the special edition release how people were really hungry for it.
It's almost as if,
very gratifying.
Yeah, it's almost as if George put those special editions out there to sort of, awaken the Force, so to speak.
It was very smart. It was risky because it could have blown up in his face.
Right.
But no. Well,
and not only that, when you think of it, people are saying, well, you might be thinking, listening to this, well, where's the risk? Well, the risk was that he spent money on the special editions. So it wasn't just, let's kick this old movie back out into the theaters. It was, we're going to put real money behind polishing them up.
For sure. Like something to the tune of $10 million worth of money.
Yeah, almost
which again might not
budget.
might not seem so impressive now.
Yeah.
But back then, it was. He was experimenting with technology that he would end up using on the prequels with the special edition.
Yeah.
Well, let's just see if it works. If it works, it works. That's how you would pump these guys up. Nobody's done it before, but if it works, that's great. If not, then they'll laugh us out of Hollywood forever. Our careers will be totaled. I don't care. I'm rich. You
rich.
guys
You're
will be
not.
blackballed throughout the entire industry. And don't come crying to me about it either. I'll be in Monaco at the Grand Prix.
Well, happy birthday, Star Wars. It is a great way to celebrate your favorite film franchise and the movie that started it all. And, you can kind of do a weird, I guess if you're going to do a weird marathon, you could do all the May 25th films. You could do episode 4, episode 6, and throw in a screening of Solo in there, Why not?
If you have to, yeah.
If you have to, yep.
Hey,
yep.
Did you hear this? That apparently on Disney Plus, they have made adjustments to The Rise of Skywalker to the clarity of the filter. That's, I guess people have been complaining that the picture was looking too blue.
Really?
Okay.
Okay.
Have you
So
heard
this is on. Yep. This is on the 4K. Yep. This is on the 4K stream. Yes. Which a lot of 4K releases get that blue haze about them. That sort of that blue tint. So this is interesting. So they've corrected
I
this.
guess they cleaned it up. And fans are noticing a tangible, noticeable difference.
Wow.
So I'm going to have to give that a spin again. It's been a while since I watched The Rise of Skywalker. It is a guilty pleasure of mine. And I read what everyone says online, that's a very hated film, but I don't care. See, instead of getting a bug up my butt like The Last Jedi people, I don't even care. I'm like, yeah, I know it's not perfect, but I love it. So I'm going to rewatch that one and see if it's a different viewing experience.
I like that it doesn't matter, to you.
It doesn't matter.
If other people like the thing you like. Like imagine that, It's hey, it brings you joy, right? Some people don't like
just don't
it.
care.
Move along.
Yeah, I've never cared.
Yeah.
I've never cared. Going back to the Phantom Menace era, there were a lot of missiles flying over the top of my ship, but I just kept on trucking along through rough waters, what have you. But,
Definitely spoken like a Gen Xer right there. Because Gen Xers didn't care. Didn't care. Cheers. What others thought about the music that they loved.
Nope.
They weren't dependent on sort of the emotions or the feelings of others in terms of.
Nope.
In fact, it was almost, there were some people out there that stopped liking a band if too many people liked the band.
Oh, yeah.
That was sort of a Gen X thing. Like, oh, man, too many people like this. I'm not so sure I dig it anymore.
Yeah, it was always better when only you knew about it. But that is a very Gen X thing. And Gen X, of course, is the Star Wars generation. So we are the ones who, like I said, boots on the ground during the release of the original trilogy. And I don't fault anyone for not being there when it happened, because I'm more than happy to share my experiences with you if you weren't there, if you were born in the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, whenever. I'm just happy to be able to share the stories. I like it. I like being around younger Star Wars fans who weren't there.
Yeah.
Because I'm the grizzled veteran sitting there telling the tales of what it was like back when we were down in the trenches of fandom in the original days when there was no organization. There was
Grandpa Jimmy, what was before Star Wars? Uncle, you prefer uncle, not grandpa?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, you're more. Yeah.
You
I'm
little
getting ahead of
turd.
myself.
Who are you calling grandpa?
Well, I'm
I'll
just
tell
saying
you when to call me grandpa, okay? And you're not my grandson. So, uncle? No, not even uncle. How
Not
about
even
Mr.
uncle.
Jimmy? No, Mr. Jimmy.
Okay.
Mr. Jimmy. That's my preferred
Mr.
pronoun.
Jimmy.
Mr. Jimmy.
Mr. Jimmy, tell us, what was life like before Star Wars?
It was the $6 Million Man. That's what it was. It was the $6 Million Man.
Yeah.
And that's why Star Wars had such a huge impact, because it was more than just one guy with robotic legs. It was robotic everything, and humans with powers.
Mind blowing. Is there? I just thought of this. Is there something in your collection? Before we wrap this up on the birthday of the Star Wars birthday, is there something in your collection more than anything that when you look at it, it gives you the feels that you had when you first were on fire for Star Wars? Is there something that you look at it and just, what is that?
Well, there's a few things. Obviously, I love that cardboard backdrop that you bought in the store and then sent in the certificate for the
early
figures.
bird.
The early bird. Mm-hmm. I love that. And that really does take me back. Mm-hmm. Now, I had never found that on the shelves. And I looked and I couldn't find it. It was going like, as the guy at the turnstile store, You have to be really ancient if you remember Turnstile. It was kind of like a very early version of Target. Okay, Turnstile. All right, that's like I feel dusty just saying that. Yeah, we shopped at the Turnstile.
We had a Woolworths.
Woolworths is, yes, definitely of that era.
Right.
But Woolworths was even more old school. Like Turnstile was new back
compared
when
to
Woolworths was in its prime, yes. But we went to both. And I remember the guy using the phrase, "Oh, no, those early birds," or whatever they were, the Star Wars things, those went like hotcakes. He said hotcakes. And I was like, holy crap, hotcakes.
Mom, he said hotcakes.
They went like hotcakes. I mean, that was just like something that burned into my brain. Hotcakes. And so I just stood there and stared at the empty display, the cardboard display. If I was smart, I should have just walked out of the store with that. That's worth way more than the thing that was selling like hotcakes. I should have just walked out of there with their damn display. Catch me if you can. That's what I would do nowadays. Trust me. I walked out of Target once with this giant Funko Pops display. It was huge. I just walked right out the door. It was empty. I just walked right out the door with it.
Well, you look like you're supposed to be doing that. Like, oh, that's the Funko guy. He sets up the displays for the Funko people.
If it doesn't set off the alarms, who cares? That's what they're thinking. Meanwhile, the guy's running the register, the Starbucks counter, and doing security all at the same time.
What could go wrong?
You got to cut costs. So meanwhile, I'm walking out with your entire Funko display. But yeah, I don't recommend that, kids. I don't. I haven't done anything like that since last month. So, back to what I was saying, they went like hotcakes.
Yeah.
But when I look at that thing, I always think about it because my next door neighbor, Jimmy Kromplis, he had 2 of them. God bless the kid. He had 2 of them, and he gave me one of them. Just the back, the cardboard display.
Oh, okay.
Not the certificate for the figures or the stickers or anything.
Oh, so you didn't mail away for those figures?
No, I never did. I had to wait till they were released in the store. Oh. And then that takes me to my second thing that I look at are my original action figures. The original Darth Vader, the original R2 with the yellowed, peeling away decal on it. It's just that, I mean, because I know that I had that. That was like my original Star Wars gear back when it was first released. So I was looking back at that, and I think of that. Those Burger King glasses do it on me also.
That was mine. That was mine. Was the Burger King glasses, and for me, it was the Return of the Jedi ones. When I look at those on my shelf, and I have one shelf of nothing but vintage stuff that has to be from my childhood era. That's the one. I just remember sitting at dinner, staring at those glasses. And again, I don't mean to sound like the grumpy old man, but we didn't have home video at that time. It existed. It didn't exist for everybody. But I would sit there at dinner with that Burger King glass from Return of the Jedi, the one from Jabba's palace, and there was one. It had Han kneeling down, shooting his blaster, with the red Kool-Aid in there, and I could just lose myself forever just thinking about the characters and reading and rereading the inscription on it. So yeah, those Burger King glasses really, really do that for me.
And what was beautiful was the consistency of promotions like that. You had it spread out throughout each film of the trilogy. So over the course of 6 years, you knew that with the release of a Star Wars film, you would have access to those Burger King glasses. So that became part of the tradition. You would get the 4 Burger King glasses with the release of a Star Wars film. That's part of that's part of the memories altogether of those great times. Of course, the thing that always takes me back is the Tusken Raider Wonder Bread trading card, which was really my first introduction to Star Wars. The day I saw that trading card come out of the bag of bread when my mom was making us peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on a Saturday afternoon, summer 77. I looked at that Tusken Raider and said, this thing is cooler than anything I've ever seen in Star Trek or any other dumb shows I watch. I have got to go see Star Wars. I think it was that little cylinder those things have underneath the Tusken Raiders. They have that little cylinder.
Yeah, it must be like an aerator or something that.
I think that the addition of that alone made me think, okay, there's something going on with this movie. Okay. They did more than just.
That was it.
Yeah. They did more than just put a crappy mask on this guy. He's got a little cylinder under his chin. What's that all about? I have to know. Is it a battery? What is that thing? Has it ever been determined what the purpose of that little cylinder is underneath the Tusken Raider's chin? Does anyone know?
Well, I mean, hold on.
All these years later, I have no idea what that sucker is for.
I do have the visual encyclopedia here.
So all right. Well, this might come in handy.
Let's see if I look up. We'll look up Tusken Raider.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a historic moment. We're all here witnessing Jason open a book for the first time in many years.
Yeah. Can you can you imagine the excitement? All right. Let's see. All right. You know, it's one of those things. You look up Tusken Raider, and it's like, oh, yeah, he appears on, like, 30 different pages. Like, I just want the main entry.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I got to tell you. David West Reynolds did those great visual dictionaries for the original Star Wars films. He might have an arrow pointing at what that thing is. You're not the only one with books here, pal.
I'm going with aerator for... Aerator for 25. Yeah, 2,500.
Look what I got.
Okay, all right. So that's the vision. That's the one for A New Hope, right? There you go. That's gonna have the answer.
Star Wars Visual Dictionary: Ultimate Guide to Star Wars Characters and Creatures by David West Reynolds.
What's the difference between the dictionary and the encyclopedia? I've got both here.
I just think the encyclopedia is a little more in depth as far as how deep it goes into all Star Wars, including the expanded universe, what have you. This is specifically a visual guide for Star Wars A New Hope. And there must be a page on the Tuskens in here that would have a little thing pointing to the cylinder underneath the Tusken Raider's chin. What does it do? Is it a battery? Does it? You know what? It doesn't have anything on the Tuskens in this stupid book.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay.
You got what?
I got it. Wait a minute. Hold on. No, because you know what they're using?
Sand people.
You know what they're using in the complete visual dictionary? I say incomplete visual dictionary. They've got a Tusken from episode 2. And these Tuskens do not have that canister hanging.
No, they're wearing turtlenecks. Those are the turtleneck Tuskens. They're from the other side of the Dune Sea. They're like the cousins nobody talks about.
Yeah,
but here
so
I have it.
You got it. Okay. All right.
I have it.
Okay.
From the Star Wars visual guide. Now, they have warrior spines on top of their head. Warrior spines. Here, I'll show you. Let's see if I can get a good. Oh, look, there he is.
There it is. That's classic.
Okay.
That's classic.
Warrior spines, head bandages, eye protection lenses, breath filter, and the moisture trap. That's what the cylinder is.
That's disgusting.
It's a moisture trap. Yeah, who has to empty that out?
Oh, that's like those kids in band that always played the instruments where they had to do the spit trap. You know, they
Yeah,
let it
yeah.
out and all their disgusting.
Yeah, like the
horn
flute
players.
player.
Yeah.
Horn. Yeah. Oh God, it's like that came out of you.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
moisture
yeah.
trap. That's disgusting. So he's got the breath filter, and it's collecting all of his saliva and moisture in that little tube. I wish I hadn't known. I think that was a secret better left.
Yeah, I liked it better when it was a battery. Yeah. It was a battery. But no, it's a moisture trap, kids. So, hey, something to think about this summer when you're out, seeing the rock festivals or what have you. Maybe take a moisture trap with you instead of a face mask. Maybe it's more effective. And people will be freaking out about moisture traps this time next year. Hey, let me into your store. No, you have to be wearing a moisture trap. Oh, you're a socialist. Things like that. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Oh my goodness. We had some housekeeping at the top of the show this week. One thing I did want to mention is that for those of you joining us on Friday nights for the Bad Batch After Show, we so appreciate that. That's a lot of fun. We do those live on Fridays. We unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do it this Friday. We're going to go and do it on Saturday. Just check our social media channels. We'll have the time up there, but it'll be sometime Saturday afternoon.
Okay,
so,
good.
Join us.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't even know what time it's going to be.
I don't know either. I know it's not going to be on Friday night. But, as we say, it's a holiday weekend. We're coming up on the Memorial Day weekend, and we've got...
No, we're not. Is that
that's
this weekend?
That's this weekend.
Holy smokes, it sure is.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you know what? Huge props to all of our great United States veterans.
Yes.
Who make all of our barbecues possible on Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
God bless you.
It's funny how those days have turned into sales at car dealerships and
Yeah, right.
but yeah, it's important to remember what those days originally stood for, and there's something great about getting together, especially this year where we've been away from our families in a lot of cases for such a long time. And so, but anyway, Bad Batch After Show will be hitting live on YouTube, as it always does each and every week here while there's a new Bad Batch episode, but that will be on Saturday this week. And Jim, you had some other notes here, things that maybe
Oh,
you
well,
wanted to
yeah,
remind?
I just wanted to mention we are now, as you guys have probably figured out, we are releasing the weekly RFRs on Thursday nights because of the Bad Batch After Shows. The Bad Batch After Shows traditionally happen on Friday nights, but we like to get out the weekly show on Thursday, so you have time to listen to that while you get ready for us to drop the Bad Batch After Show. This week, Saturday for Bad Batch After Show. Time, TBD. But be looking for regular weekly RFR releases happening Thursday nights. I'm shooting for Wednesday nights if you are members of RFR on Patreon. Anyone from the lowest tier, RFR Insider, all the way up to the highest tier, RFR VIP. You guys should be getting the weekly shows always first, but I would like to get them to you a full 24 hours in advance. So we're making adjustments to our schedule for the summer, and we should be able to be getting you those episodes in a more timely manner. Of course, weekly full show video also available on Patreon of the weekly RFR shows, along with highlights going out on YouTube. Speaking of the weekly RFR, who here still has soap in their ears from the scrub down after FJ DeSanto's, or as he's now known as F-Bomb DeSanto, in his curse-laden interview from last week? That was outstanding. But you got to understand, that's FJ. That's pure FJ.
Right.
I don't want FJ to be unfiltered. I want him to be unfiltered. I don't want any filter applied to FJ DeSanto. And I didn't want him being careful about what he says, because there's a stream of consciousness that just flows out of him. And it's just profanity laced. But it is always filled with awesome insights and amazing Hollywood industry knowledge. And that's why I love FJ, because he's just so real about it. And we heard back from...
And you know, with FJ, it's the profanity is never done to offend or done to in a mean spirited. It just colorizes what he's saying. It sort of underscores, it emphasizes. It's a very benign way to swear the way he does it.
Right. He peppers his speech with it and doesn't direct profanity at individuals.
Right.
It's just something that's more like punctuation in his sentences.
So true.
And everyone knows this. Jeff Holland, RFR VIP Jeff Holland, he took notice of this and provided us with the FJ curse word counter, a.k.a. the FJ CWC. And so here's the tale of the tape for FJ DeSanto's appearance last week on Rebel Force Radio. He dropped 81 S-bombs.
When you consider the number of minutes that the interview lasted, it's...
we'll break it all down.
Oh, okay. All right.
He dropped 43 F-bombs.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
6 BSs, 4 HE double hockey sticks, 3 MFers, 1 A, accompanied by 1 A-hole, for a total of 139 curse words over the course of 99 minutes, which gives us an average of 1.4 curse words per minute, making it 1 curse word every 42.7 seconds. So FJ DeSanto, it's like breathing oxygen for him.
Oh my God. It's like the cursing Olympics. Like nobody could hold a candle to this guy, but nobody can hold a candle to his, I think his deep understanding of Star Wars and how it fits into the context of, being an industry veteran. He just has such a great perspective, and it's really worth checking out. If you haven't heard last week's show, please do that. Also, we already talked about Bad Batch. I thought we had Bad Batch feedback, but I don't know if that was...
Oh, we do have Bad Batch feedback. After the show was over, I really enjoyed going through a lot of the comments on YouTube.
Oh, right.
Who's ever said that before, right? Who has ever in the history of YouTube ever said anything like that? But I'm talking about Rebel Force Radio listeners, or we should say viewers on YouTube. But you guys always bring intelligent conversation and very insightful observations to our conversations. And things happen so fast during the podcast itself. Obviously me and Jason aren't saying everything that's on our mind about that show. It's just impossible to fit it all into one show. We have to let other people talk, and the rhythm of the conversation takes us to different places. So, that's why I always am surprised. I can't believe they didn't bring up, and then some super obscure thing. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess I noticed that, but it just never came up in conversations. No big deal. But let's just take a look at some of these highlights from some questions that I enjoyed, or some responses I enjoyed looking at on YouTube. We talked about how the clones, specifically the Bad Batch, are developing fatherly instincts. And that to me seems like something that's very outside of the nature for a clone. A clone to develop fatherly instincts. Number one, clones have never had fathers. So it's hard for them to sort of base any child rearing that they might experience on their own experiences.
Right.
But also beyond that, they're artificially created life forms, I should say. Because they're not artificial life forms. I believe clones have free will. That's
sure.
Something we never really got into or anything. But that fatherly instinct I thought was just fascinating to see that develop in Hunter specifically as he looks after Omega. And our buddy Sadiq says, The fatherly instinct inherent in all clones comes from Jango Fett's DNA. Don't forget, his payment for donating his DNA was a child. Have you ever asked yourself why? Well, there you go. I mean, he just had the desire to raise a son, and that's.
I mean, how do we know?
Connection.
How do we know that Jango Fett didn't have a son before Boba, and perhaps there was something tragic that occurred, and he wanted to have a son again? You know, I'm just saying that there could be some real depth to his longing to wanting to have a child. Could be, yeah.
Huh. You know, I never really thought about Django's backstory. You know, what if he was like settled down as a family man and had a family that was somehow wiped out by the Empire, or not the Empire, but by
some force or
whatever,
some tragedy or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just a simple man trying to make his way in the universe. That's what he says.
That's what he says. And you got to take that at face value. I always have. To me, that was always kind of essential to Django's character. That single statement right there.
Mm-hmm.
It sort of just lays it out, puts all of his cards on the table. This is who I am, and, you know, whatever. You know, he doesn't pledge allegiance to anything or anyone. He's just trying to get by.
Yeah.
Here's something from Chad. I don't know if you picked up reference to the planet Idaflor. Idaflor. At the beginning of the episode, they were looking for a place to go hide out, and they looked at Idaflor on their Nava computer, but they had to crash land on Seleucami instead.
Okay, yeah.
So Idaflor. Chad says Idaflor, the planet they were trying to go hide out on in the first part of the episode, is an anagram for Florida. Idaflor. That would be easy to figure out if it was called.
My dentist wanted to put some of that on my teeth last time I was in the chair.
Oh, Idaflor?
Yeah, I'm going to put a little Idaflor on here. You'll.
Yeah, 4 out of 5 dentists surveyed approve Idaflor. But yeah, the planet they were trying to go hide out on in the first part of the episode is an anagram for Florida. So at the very least, it was a nod to Batu and Galaxy's Edge.
Oh, okay. All right.
Could Batu be in the Idaflor system?
Ooh, now that would be cool. I think a lot of us are. I think we mentioned this on the Bad Batch After Show that we were thinking that at some point we're bound to see Batu show up in one of these series, whether it be animated or live action. I don't think there's been a reference to Batu yet in the Star Wars universe on film or television. I don't think so.
No, I took note of it when they mentioned Idaflor, and I didn't, put together the puzzle. Oh, Florida. I just didn't, it just kind of bounced off me. But I thought there was maybe some significance to it. And I did at least acknowledge that I'd never heard of it before.
Yeah.
So another guy pointed out, probably responding to you, Jason, about your take on the episode, because you thought it was a little light, maybe a filler episode. And Benjamin says, not a fan of the terminology filler episode. This isn't a 2-hour movie, it's serialized TV. The fun of the show is living with the characters and watching them have adventures over a longer span of time instead of wrapping things all up as quickly as possible. If this is an ongoing series, let's just enjoy the ride. A lot has happened in this episode. The Bad Batch have to figure out how to survive on their own, and it revealed that there's a bounty out on Omega. We really enjoyed it, and it looked fantastic. He says we, so now they're teaming up. Now they're teaming up on you.
What's his name?
Benjamin. I think Benjamin's
okay,
right now.
well, right. Okay, but Benjamin has never had to sit and moderate a 90-minute discussion about a filler episode before. So
yeah, that is really, that's interesting because you are coming from it from a different perspective, because as you're watching the episode, you're also considering about how you are going to guide a conversation with someone as difficult as me. I mean, I'm difficult to manage, okay? I know I am very difficult to manage. So you have to keep it nice and tight. And if the episode isn't providing you with a solid outline right from first viewing of it, you get a little nervous about that.
I do, yeah.
But sometimes when we just let it breathe, there's all sort of interesting observations and revelations that we come to on our own just by talking it out.
That's absolutely true. And of course the callers, and that takes a big load off because we never run out. Look, it's been 15 years, folks. We never run out of things when the topic is Star Wars. We never run out of things to say. So, but I take what he's saying. I get it. Hey, let's dip into the voicemail real quick. If you, this one I thought was interesting, especially since we have our encyclopedias and dictionaries handy.
Hey, Jason and Jimmy.
Let's put them to use.
This is Nick from New York calling. Had an idea because I recently rewatched the Clone Wars and finished it before the Bad Batch. I think it was like my third rewatch of the series. I absolutely loved that series. And I was wondering, I mean, of course, we get what we get, but it would be really awesome if there was an animated series, or even better, a live series, but, that would be asking for a lot, of Count Dooku's turn to the dark side. That was never really, it was mentioned and talked about, but never really explored in any of the movies or TV series too much, and maybe the Acolyte will dive into that a little bit. I don't know, I doubt it, but I thought that would be really cool to see how Dooku went from a Jedi Master to a Sith Lord. I mean, he's one of the best characters, especially the great Christopher Lee, just doing the most amazing job bringing him to life. So, wonder what you guys are thinking about that. I have some Bad Batch banter to talk about. Maybe I'll call in this week. Take care, guys. Thanks for everything. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you very much for that. So I, as a good boy, I grabbed my Star Wars Absolutely Everything You Need to Know, updated and expanded book. I grabbed the dictionary. I grabbed the encyclopedia because Dooku is a character that was written about aplenty during the expanded universe era, particularly during the golden age of the expanded universe. But having not really read a lot of that material, I thought, well, let me go in here and see what canonically we can say definitively about Dooku. But before I do, Jim, as someone who has read much, if not most, of the expanded universe, are there any Dooku origin stories or comic book series or anything that you might recommend out there for people that want to dive in a little bit more about Dooku, a character that I do believe, I agree with our caller, that is rather underexplored in the, certainly within the screen universe of Star Wars.
There's a Jango Fett miniseries from Dark Horse called Jango Fett Open Seasons. And there's some interesting Dooku stuff in there. That I remember. Also, there's a novel that happens between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. And for the life of me, I can't remember the name.
I know what you're talking about. It's got a youngish Dooku on the cover, right? And it's covers his time with Yoda.
I almost want to say it's called Cloak of Darkness.
Cloak of Darkness. I think you're right. It's been
so long since I read it. So I'm going to pull up a little description about it. I didn't have time to prep for this voicemail.
Well, this is all off the dome here, folks.
Yeah, it's all off the dome. So Cloak of Darkness. Oh, that's the name of a Clone Wars episode.
It is.
Cloak of Darkness.
Oh, I think maybe you're thinking of Cloak of Deception.
Cloak of Deception.
That's the novel.
Okay, by James Luceno. No, this Cloak of Deception happens between Phantom Menace. It happens a year before Phantom Menace, so I'm wrong on that. So I'm
no cloaks involved.
No for two.
Yeah, like Ewan McGregor said last week. Maybe there's not a cloak.
There was a novel in between, And there was something like a Yoda novel like that you are recalling.
Yeah.
You brought it up.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
Yoda novel
Yeah.
that may have had flashbacks about Count Dooku. But it's been so long since I dove into episode 2 prequel era expanded universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
a
been long
deep
time.
cut.
So
It's a deep cut. Meanwhile,
Yeah, what do you got?
Well, here's what I got. So, and this is kind of interesting because this is the absolutely everything you need to know. And so they have they break it all down, with the fast facts. There's some interesting things in here, though. He's from Sereno. We know that, and that ties into the old EU. What brought him, what cemented his allegiance to the Sith was that he did kill Jedi Sifo Dyas, and that is canonical. Under orders from Darth Sidious, he did this, and then with Sifo Dyas being eliminated, the Sith were able to take control of the Jedi clone army.
So let me ask you this, because the Sifo Dyas thing has always been really confusing. And I thought George Lucas named the character Sifo Dyas because he was trying to create another alias for Palpatine. Darth Sidious, Sifo Dyas, Sifo Dyas. It's just kind of like a play on that. So I was thinking to myself that it was Dooku who kills Sidious, and Palpatine or Dooku take his identity and approach the Kaminoans to create the clone army. That's what I think had happened. I don't think that Jedi Master Sifo Dyas ever actually made contact with the Kaminoans.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. I think they killed him and took his identity and presented themselves. And it was possibly Palpatine himself doing it. Maybe he had a way to disguise himself or just presented himself as is,
Well, I always took it that Sifo Dyas went rogue and had a sense, much perhaps like Qui-Gon, that the Jedi were on the wrong path and that they needed something to protect them perhaps from what was coming. And that, it was sort of like, well, if they're not going to protect themselves, I'm going to do it. And so he made a deal with the Kaminoans and had, and Dooku knew about this because they were friends. They were close. And as Dooku was being courted to the dark side by Palpatine discovered it, or Palpatine was the puppet master behind it all. But nonetheless, and I'm also hazy on some of the Sifo Dyas stuff that was there was a little bit covered in the Clone Wars very briefly, and not in any real depth. But for those of you who are new to all of this lore, Dooku was trained by Yoda. Yoda considered him not only his greatest student, but also his greatest failure. He is one of the Lost 20, and you can see those Lost 20. They're the busts of them in the library there at the Jedi Temple. Obi-Wan is looking at it as Jocasta Nu approaches him in Episode 2. And so Dooku is the 20th. The other thing that I was reminded of is that there was one after Dooku, and that was covered in the Clone Wars, and that was Pong Krell. If you remember, Jedi Master Pong Krell deliberately led his clone battalion into a massacre to sort of claim his, and then he had the Sith red eyes, and so he was a fallen Jedi, though I don't know if they ever put him on the list. No, made him the 21st, but he certainly followed Dooku. And then, of course, Anakin Skywalker would later do that. So Anakin would have been perhaps the 22nd.
But he never had a chance. You see, Pong Krell he never left the Jedi Order. He was killed by his own troopers on the battlefield.
Oh, good point. Yes. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. The Lost 20 are those that chose to leave the Jedi Order, not that fell to the dark
Right.
side necessarily. So,
right.
yes, my mistake. That's correct. So Ponkrell wouldn't have been one of those, nor would Anakin.
No.
They didn't leave the Jedi Order.
Dooku was the 20th to walk
Yes.
away. In the entire history of the Jedi, they were down. They were around for 1,000 years. 1,000.
Right.
No, it was like 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Whatever the number that is. So it's they were around for a long time. Only 20 walked away. So that just kind of tells you how righteous of an organization the Jedi Knights were, because there wasn't much turnover. People stuck around there. Their health benefits were spectacular because nobody left.
Here's something everybody wants to know. Count Dooku loves wearing fine clothing. His elegant cloak is woven by famous tailors on the distant planet Vijun.
He even has to go. He has a specific planet he goes to for his clothes.
And it is a symbol of the Counts of Sereno. His boots are made of rare Rancor leather, as is his belt, which holds his stylish yet deadly red crystal lightsaber. I will say of Dooku, his hilt is my favorite in all of Star Wars. I love that curved hilt that he has. I like it. I like it. What can I say? I like a curved hilt.
That's pretty cool. It's got that sort of a bayonet. I guess it would be a cross guard, but it's sort of a thing that sort of spikes out of the top of it.
Now
that's pretty cool.
Here's a question about Dooku. Did he leave the Jedi Order to lead the Separatist army after he was courted to the dark side, or was he courted to the dark side after he had already left the Jedi Order? I don't know the answer to that.
I tend to think that he was swayed to leave the Jedi Order by Darth Sidious. I believe Sidious influenced him. There was communication between the two of them because Dooku had developed a reputation as someone who stood against the Jedi Council, especially in regards to foreign diplomacy, for lack of a better term. And he was an idealist, is what they say.
Right.
That he had a specific vision for how the universe should be. So Palpatine seized on that, recognizing his weaknesses, and was able to influence him and sway him away from the Jedi via the enticement of the dark side of the Force. He was really able to play a mind game on him, just like he did with Anakin Skywalker and tried to do with Luke Skywalker.
Right.
That's Palpatine's way. And how he came into contact with Dooku, how they were able to hold their clandestine meetings, and how this conditioning was able to happen. That's where I agree with our voicemail caller, where I would love to hear that story being told. That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
But obviously it all happens in the period between episode 1 and episode 2, or even in the period leading up to episode 1.
Yeah. Right.
You have to assume that Sidious had Darth Maul, and that was his apprentice. But as all Sith Lords do, they like to test their apprentice and make sure he's worthy enough. And so Dooku then Sidious locked in on Dooku and turned him into Darth Tyrannus. Yeah, the origin of Darth Tyrannus. That's a story I want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see that. Let's see that done on Disney Plus. That would be a hell of a miniseries. A Dooku miniseries, because you could incorporate Yoda. You could get some Qui-Gon in there, some young Qui-Gon.
Qui-Gon.
Liam
Neeson call him?
Yeah, I say it because, well, hey, if Liam Neeson calls him Qui-Gon, then who am I to disagree?
Yeah, Qui-Gon. Yeah, sure, I'll go back and play Qui-Gon.
I mean, look, you think that will never happen? I mean, did Marvel fans ever think they were going to see a Loki miniseries. I mean, which
Right.
is going to be premiering on Disney Plus. I mean, we are in so many ways in a golden age of this of this type of entertainment. Anything's possible, but a miniseries about Dooku would be really, really cool. Very cool. So great comment by. If you want to leave us a voicemail, you can do that. We would love to hear from you. You can just call us up at 3. What's that number? I just lost it. 708-320-1737. All right, we got one story here to talk about. So let's check in with the news.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
All right, we mentioned this briefly on the Bad Batch After Show as some of our callers and folks in the chat were lighting it up saying, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this? And, well, it depends on what you're looking at or what you're pointing at because, yes, so the Lucasfilm, the official Lucasfilm website was updated. Their basically their roster of people with the company and their titles was updated, and Dave Filoni was credited as being an executive. Hold on, where is that?
Executive creative director, something.
Yes. Where? Yes, executive creative director for the entire studio. So for Lucasfilm. So he's an executive creative director for the entire studio. Mm-hmm. Now, Variety went in and covered this and said, hey, there's really nothing to get too carried away about, folks, because that title was given to him months ago.
Yeah.
And it's just now making its way to the website. So, corporate websites, they don't always get updated as frequently. Some of us know that personally, as you might like them to. But nonetheless, it doesn't take away from the fact that Dave Filoni has been given this title change. And Jim, on the Bad Batch After Show, you were quick to point out that there are 2 other executive creative directors with Lucasfilm, as far as you know. Doug Chang, who was really the visionary behind the Star Wars prequels in terms of visual design, concept design, and also John Knoll came up with the idea for Rogue One, for one, but, he also, helped invent Photoshop. So
he was the guy, among others, in that room when George Lucas pulled out the very first storyboards for The Phantom Menace. Yeah, and George stood there with a yellow highlighter and a pink highlighter. And the yellow indicated live action in each frame, and the pink highlighted special effects. And he was using a lot of pink on those.
Do you remember how he would call it? Like, one was, that's real.
Yeah, real.
This is
that's
computer.
You guys.
Yeah, that's you
and
guys.
that's you guys.
That's
and they're sitting there looking at it, and it's storyboard after storyboard, and their jaws are all hitting the floor. Like no one has ever presented such an ambitious special effects project before in a single motion picture. How are we going to do it?
Yeah.
And George is like, oh, they'll figure it out. I know they will.
Right.
It's just like,
right.
I got faith in you guys. Meanwhile, there were many, many sleepless nights going on in the Bay Area as these guys tried to figure it out.
And you point out to things, people will point out, they'll be like, well, it was Jurassic Park that gave George, a lot of confidence in ILM and where computer generated effects was at the time. But these were characters that needed to be like, these were main cast characters. He's talking about Jar Jar Binks, who's going to interact with Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor and Jake Lloyd throughout the whole film. It wasn't It wasn't one chase sequence or one monster. It was a major member of the cast. That was huge at that time. Huge.
Absolutely. Never been done before.
Right.
And I think a lot of people forget that when they want to crap all over episode 1. You forget the groundbreaking technological achievements that film is responsible for in the fine tradition of Star Wars to begin with. And that's why it will always have a special place in my heart for that fact alone, and many other reasons. I am a Phantom Menace apologist, and I always have been for years. Friends would call me out in public spaces. I had one friend stand up in the famous Billy Goat Tavern, downtown Chicago. Where,
wait. The Billy Mac Tavern?
The Billy Goat.
Billy Goat. Oh, Billy Goat. I'm sorry.
It's probably best known for being the place that influenced the John Belushi bit from Saturday Night Live. Cheeseburger, 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 cheeseburger.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's where all that started.
Billy Goat Tavern.
And it's a rough and tumble place, and often frequented by a lot of news media back in the day. And I had my friend stand up, and this was summer 1999. He stood up in the middle of a packed bar room and yelled at me, "You're being a Jar Jar Binks apologist." It was one of those situations where every head turned. You know, you were the sound.
Are we talking summer of '99 here? Is that what we're talking? Okay.
Yes.
So this is fresh. People know what Jar Jar Binks is.
The jukebox unplugged, where it was so rapidly you heard the needle like get pulled off of the record, and you heard everyone stop eating and all stare at me.
Yeah, the silverware you could hear it clank on the plates.
Yeah. And there was an awkward moment of silence before I stood up and I said, "Yeah, I am."
Now that one we bleeped.
That one we did bleep because I ain't no FJ DeSanta.
My God.
Nobody needs to hear my gratuitous curse words. But I'll tell you what, the folks on RFR All Access will get the full show video, and they'll hear that with all the consonants and vowels attached, and it will be spectacular.
Unedited. Hey, but here's what's interesting, though, Jim, about this, the way that Variety covered this. So Variety goes out, they go, "Hey, we know you're all excited, Star Wars fans, but this happened a while ago. Nothing to get too excited about." And it wasn't just Star Wars fans. I mean, some of Dave's colleagues and some of the actors from the show, like Ming-Na Wen, they were tweeting and saying, "Oh, we're so happy for you, Dave Filoni." So two things jump out at me in this article. The first is that why was there no fanfare for this promotion of Dave Filoni when it actually happened? So Variety certainly didn't cover it when it originally happened. They only covered it when the website got updated and fans got excited. Question number one. Question number two is, if you read far down in the article, you'll see that they run through the series that Kathleen Kennedy announced some time ago. Of course, we all know everything from, Obi-Wan to Lando to Andor to Acolyte, all those shows that we've been talking about. But there's one note as they go through the roster of shows that Dave Filoni is attached to: The Book of Boba Fett, of course, The Mandalorian, and Ahsoka. They say a third announced spinoff, Rangers of the New Republic, is not currently in active development. So this is what we call burying the lead a little bit, because to my knowledge, there has not been a story from Variety or any of the major trades, Hollywood Reporter, anything, saying that Rangers of the New Republic is dead, that it's not currently being worked on. So again, two questions. Why was Dave Filoni's initial promotion not publicized? You would think that they would want to do that as a company. And two, why, likewise, has it not been publicized that Rangers of the New Republic is dead?
All right. Number one, I think that Lucasfilm for years has devalued the importance of Dave Filoni to that company. I know firsthand there was a fear from the Filoni camp, let's just say, that Dave was going to lose his job in 2013 when Lucasfilm Animation was disbanded after the Disney takeover. Dave survived. And I think that overall, his worth is still emerging to the power brokers within the corporation, both at Disney and Lucasfilm. I think Kathleen Kennedy knows what she has in Dave Filoni. I think she values him just fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that's been the case above her in the Disney Corporation. I think Dave has proved a lot to a lot of people via his work on Clone Wars and Mandalorian, specifically. And the fact that Jon Favreau likes him a lot, too. Favreau has tremendous clout at Disney. You have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
He has tremendous clout. And so taking Dave Filoni under his wing obviously won a lot of allies for Dave Filoni. I mean, we as fans, we've been crazy about Dave Filoni really since he hit the scene because it's obvious he's one of us who got elevated into this position, and he's handled it with incredible professional class.
Well, hand-selected by George Lucas in 2005 to helm the Clone Wars, coming out of a relatively obscure show, Avatar: Last Airbender on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, it's not like he just came up out of nowhere.
Right, exactly.
He had experience coming into
Yes. But he was also a huge fan, but he found a way to balance his fandom at least enough, to appear, reasonable to George Lucas. I can just imagine that because I think George is sometimes wary of people that are overt fans. I don't think that's what he necessarily wants to surround himself with.
Yes. What set Filoni apart from the rest is I think George has had a lot of people come across his path who know a lot about Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
So all these guys, they wanted to prove to George Lucas what they knew about Star Wars, as if they can talk Star Wars on his level. Maybe they're thinking.
Right.
But Filoni was different. He could talk Star Wars on George Lucas's level, but he chose to instead open up his ears. And he was just a great listener for George. He was a good soundboard for Lucas. And he was able to facilitate George's visions. So the combination of those three made him indispensable to George Lucas. Mm-hmm. And I think on top of it all, Dave Filoni is just a good hang. He's a good hang.
Yeah.
And George likes hanging with him.
Yeah.
And so those three factors really is what has always elevated Dave Filoni to George Lucas. But these are intangible things that a big corporation like Disney doesn't recognize. You got to keep kicking them in the crotch until they understand. And why is it not heavily publicized? Well, that's the reason from a marketing aspect is I still don't think that the Disney Corporation respects what Filoni brings to them in that aspect. But also from what I know from Dave Filoni personally is that he doesn't seek out attention. He really doesn't. He's just a simple man trying to make his way through the universe. And I always think about this story he told me once personally. He said that he, doesn't go out looking for attention, and really his neighbors don't know what he does or anything. And he was caught in this awkward situation once. He was taking out his garbage, and a neighbor approached him and said, "The craziest thing happened. My daughter said she saw you on Cartoon Network wearing a cowboy hat." And so Dave had to come clean. Well, I work on Star Wars, and sometimes it gets heavily publicized, and I appear on TV and stuff. And so, he downplays it.
Well, he's like Clark Kent and Superman. The hat is a bit of a disguise in a way. It's, I think it's a part of who Filoni is, but it's also a bit of Batman's cowl going on there.
Yes. But I think that Dave would have preferred to downplay any sort of professional promotion he received because essentially at the end of the day, he's doing the same thing he's always done. It's just now he has a title and a rank within the corporation that reflects that. Mm-hmm. Now, Doug Chain and John Knoll, those guys have been executives for a while. Even before this new creative director nomenclature has been attached to them. But Dave Filoni being inserted into the executive ranks is something different. That tells us that, hey, look, the corporation is starting to take Dave Filoni seriously. They're starting to recognize what he brings to the table. He's been there for the long haul.
Sure.
He's been in a position running these shows where usually there's a lot of turnover. Nobody stays with particular projects for as long as they do. The reason Dave does is because he was forged by George Lucas. He is an apprentice to the master. And look at the other two guys who also share that creative director title. John Knoll, forged at the hands of the master, George Lucas. Doug Chang, forged at the hands of the master. So it makes a lot of sense to me that these guys are getting locked in so they don't go off to other projects. And they are there to help shepherd the future of Star Wars. As, you know, that's like one of the best Star Wars trilogies of all time. Filoni, Chang, and Knoll.
Right.
Because, I mean, they've been there for so long, and their touch is now going to be established in future Star Wars for time to come now. So, lock them in, get them secured, and let's move forward on the future of Star Wars. And it already makes sense because Filoni has so many projects in the work already. He's working on Mandalorian Season 3. He's working on Book of Boba Fett. He's working on Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why I think there was no big hype about it. Also, it happened at the height of the pandemic when, really there wasn't stuff happening in the public and in the open because nobody was going in the office.
Right.
So
yeah, it was actually last summer. So it was about a year ago that he was given this title. According
things
to
are
Variety.
happening on the down low everywhere, folks.
Right.
We're learning emerging news out of every corner of every industry because of how the year 2020 muted people's professions across the board. Now, guess what? The webmaster is going back to work now, and he's updating the website. Where you been?
Hey, and we're not talking about the person who runs StarWars.com. We're talking about the person who runs the Lucasfilm corporate website. We're not talking about the most glamorous position in the world here.
Right. Yeah, probably a lot of that's an afterthought, and you will find that the case in all sort of corporate websites, that things are woefully out of date.
Right.
And again, a lot of these people have been furloughed for the better part of the last year, so why would they be updating websites that they're not getting paid to update?
Yes.
It makes all the sense in the world. I think a lot of people are making the mistake by assuming that Dave Filoni has entered the executive ranks purely to replace Kathleen Kennedy. I don't see that happening. I think Kathleen Kennedy has too many projects. I mean, non-Star Wars projects. She's got Indy 5. She's got this Children of Blood and Stone. She's got her hands filled with Disney Plus projects, the Willow series. There are a lot of moving parts at Star Wars. So it makes sense now that certain figureheads are being placed in a position to be the shepherds of the future of Star Wars. And we got three great ones, all who come with George Lucas's fingerprints all over them. Don't call HR. I don't mean it that way.
Okay. Before we go into the Rangers of the New Republic, in that little tidbit that the show's no longer in development, you had mentioned earlier, you said something about you're unsure, or it's not obvious to you that Disney really, as a corporation, values Dave Filoni. Do you think that they're aware of the affection that the fans have for Dave Filoni, and do you think they feel that that's a certain amount of currency or credibility?
Yeah, I think so. But I think Dave himself is skeptical of being used as a marketing tool. I think he's a real guy. He's a real deal. I don't think, I think he gets off on the attention that he receives at things like, conventions or is part of a Blu-ray bonus feature. and or even going to award shows. You know, who wouldn't get off on that kind of stuff? That's fun. But I think at the end of the day, he's not seeking to be some sort of like Star Wars mascot or anything like that.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah,
and I think he's cautious about it too. I think he does keep a lot of that hype at arm's length, just knowing the guy the way we've gotten to know him.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so let's get into the second part of this, which is Rangers of the New Republic, which we had very little detail. It wasn't that long ago we were on here, really within the context of the Gina Carano controversy and firing and all of that, really discussing what we might be able to glean from this show and what it might be about. And here we've got it in Variety, literally in parentheses. That's how much this is buried into the story. Oh, yeah, Ranger of the Republic. Yeah, by the way, that's no longer in development.
No longer in development?
Yeah.
Is that what it says? Is that the exact terminology?
Well, let me get the exact quote. The exact quote is, they're talking about Favreau and Filoni, and it says, in December, Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy announced that Filoni and Favreau are executive producing several Mandalorian spin-offs for Disney+, including The Book of Boba Fett, which is currently shooting and premiering in December, and Ahsoka, starring Rosario Dawson and based on the character Filoni created in the Clone Wars. Parentheses, a third announced spin-off, Rangers of the New Republic, is not currently in active development.
Not currently in active development.
There's a lot. There's a lot of language here. A finessing. Not currently
so clearly,
inactive.
Yes.
I mean, that's a little redundant, but.
So to take one of George Lucas's famous phrases, it's on the shelf.
Oh.
And so that's where it is. Is it shelved? Is it been trash binned? I don't think so, but not currently in active development. So it's not being developed. And that's odd because in December, it clearly was intended to be in active development.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells us everything we need to know, that Gina Carano was going to be the focus of that show show has been pushed aside, put on the back burner, put on a shelf until they can figure out a way to find a solution for it. Or maybe it wasn't even really fleshed out completely and can be
a logo
into another. It did have a logo.
It had a logo. The other thing that I would add is that, you know, if you remember, Kathleen Kennedy said that all these series would culminate into a big storytelling event.
Yes.
So this is pulling one of the pieces out of that puzzle. Of that storytelling event. Now, of course, they have plenty of time, I'm sure, to retool that, but it was part of the Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian, and then you had Rangers in there. It was all going to lead to this. So I wonder to what extent that will impact that.
It'll probably get absorbed as far as storytelling goes into Mandalorian Season 3. That's my guess.
Mm-hmm.
Book of Boba Fett's been shooting for a while. I mean, that script is locked down. I would imagine that Mandalorian will probably be shooting soon. If it isn't already, it might be right now. With so many different projects.
3 Star Wars series right now in front of cameras that we know of.
Right.
That's huge.
So, things could be getting shot day to day for series that, you know, you don't know what's coming up next. You know, what are we shooting today? Andor? Ahsoka. Like, we're not shooting Ahsoka yet. It's Kenobi.
Yeah,
we're shooting Kenobi. No, this is Book of Boba Fett.
Now, all right,
is this Book of Boba Fett?
I'm going to put. Can I put my cynic hat on? I'm going to put my cynic hat on for a minute, and I'm going to.
That looks good on you.
Thank you.
I never see you wearing a
hat.
That's I like your cynic hat.
You know what? I'm going to get a real hat that says cynic. I now that I'm inspired, but I just want to give some voice to those who are saying, yeah, we've been down this road. You announce a bunch of titles, you start firing people, and then you start canceling stuff.
Sure.
Happened with the films. Now it's happening with the TV series. So do you think there's there's fire where that smoke is, or do you think that this
Hell
is
yeah.
part of the pattern?
Hell yeah. When they announced all those series in December, I even said it back then. It's unlikely all of these series will see the light of day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Rangers of the New Republic will definitely fall into that category. It appears that it was a Gina Carano vehicle. It's not going to be the guy from the Canadian comedy show who's Carson Teva, the X-Wing pilot, Blue.
Oh.
They're not going to base a whole series around that guy.
No.
It was going to be the Gina Carano show. It was going to possibly have Bill Burr, maybe even Horatio Sands.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about that. Horatio. Yeah.
We were seeing a soft pilot to that in Mandalorian Season 2.
Yeah.
As we were with the Ahsoka series. As we were with the Boba Fett series.
3 backdoor pilots packed into that season. I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Iger had told us that we were going to see Mandalorian Season 2 spin off into other series.
Mm-hmm.
He told us that before the season even began.
Mm-hmm.
And now when we look back, now we know what he was talking about. But unfortunately, Gina's not going to be around for one of those. And that's a shame. Because Favreau's vision is now being compromised. And George Lucas was the type of guy who would never let his vision be compromised. And that's what was so important to the spirit of Star Wars in those early years. And I almost feel like Jon Favreau has picked up that baton from George Lucas. Not J.J. Abrams, not Gareth Edwards, not Kathleen Kennedy, certainly not Rian Johnson. But Jon Favreau is the guy who really gets it. He understands Star Wars better than George Lucas does. He at least understands what fans want better than anyone. And I just hate to see his vision get compromised at this important part of his development of the future of Star Wars. So that's all. And over unfortunate reasons.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that Rangers of the New Republic won't happen. It can be retooled if it's that important.
Yes.
Or they can just, like I said, they can just dump everything into season 3 of The Mandalorian.
Right.
And keep it nice and tight.
Yeah. And the question is, was it important because it really did tie into the overall storytelling, this big storytelling event, or was it that they wanted to create, an opportunity for Gina Carano and some of the other co-stars? So that's the question. But either way, congratulations to Dave Filoni and his new position.
Yes.
New position.
Hey, this is Dave Filoni, supervising director of Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to one of my favorite podcasts. In fact, the only podcast I listen to.
Well, before we wrap things up, Jim, this is a big deal. We like to brag and say that our microphones are everywhere. There is Star Wars news happening, and you tipped me off that our microphones were there for an incredible happening at the famous Bamboo Lounge in Brooklyn. What happened at the Bamboo Lounge in Brooklyn?
Yeah, this tip comes in from loyal RFR listener Anthony, who tells us that there was a very rare Star Wars dinner in New York City. We say it's a Star Wars dinner because it featured, listen to this lineup, it'll blow you away. Lando Calrissian himself, Billy D. Williams, was there, sitting at the same table with Qui-Gon Jinn actor Liam Neeson. And if that doesn't blow your mind, Forrest Whitaker, Saw Gerrera, was also part of this.
Wow. You've got the original trilogy era, the sequel trilogy era, and Saw Gerrera, Forrest Whitaker, who's part of the Disney era, and also kind of connects all of this. This is incredible.
Yes. Well, Liam Neeson, prequel era. And
yes, prequel
Forrest
era.
Whitaker, of course, is Saw Gerrera. Yeah. The unforgettable, the irrepressible Saw Gerrera. And they were all spotted at the famous Bamboo Lounge in Brooklyn. And yes, RFR microphones were there. We got a tip about this. And so here it is. We actually have audio of the guys hanging out at a Star Wars dinner in New York City.
So I said, how you doing, Chewbacca? Are you still hanging around with this loser? Bing, pow.
You're a funny guy. That's really funny.
What do you mean I'm funny?
Well, it's funny, It's a good story. It's funny. You're a funny guy.
What do you mean, the way I talk? What?
Oh, sure, it's just, you're funny. It's funny. The way you tell the story and everything.
Funny how? What's funny about it?
Tommy, no. You've got it all wrong.
Oh, Anthony. He's a big boy. He knows what he said. What'd you say? Funny how?
Oh, it's just,
What?
Just, you're funny.
I mean, let me understand this, because, maybe I'm a little f***ed up, maybe. But I'm funny how? I mean, funny like a clown? I amuse you? I'm here to make you laugh? I'm here to f***ing amuse you? What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
Just, you know how to tell the story. What?
No. I don't know. You said it. How do I know? You said I'm funny. How the f*** am I funny? What the f*** is so funny about me? Tell me what's funny.
Get the f*** out of here, Tommy.
I almost had him, you stuttering Frankie, was he shaking? I wonder about you sometimes, Henry. You may fold on the question.
Frankie, was he shaking?
The names were changed in that to protect the innocent, clearly. But there you have it. You never know when Star Wars magic is going to strike. The Bamboo Lounge in Brooklyn. And my goodness, Billy D. Williams, Liam Neeson, and Forrest Whitaker all there together. You imagine, did you notice how quiet the whole restaurant got there when things got a little tense? And I've heard Billy...
That's the way it happened at the Billy Goat Tavern when I was accused of being a Jar Jar apologist. It was the exact same sort of situation. Everyone got quiet.
Oh... That was phenomenal. That was phenomenal. Well, you never know when Rebel Force Radio microphones are going to be there. Where there's Star Wars excitement, there's Rebel Force Radio.